Greetings, children of God.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm here. How about you all?
We are fine. We begin today, before we get into your questions, with messages. The first one is for our son, which is to acknowledge and recognize and affirm his understanding that he is at the point of adding zucchini to the bread mix. The man who lives 5 lives. And it is not necessary. There must be an act of faith, a sense of knowing and trusting and leaping into the void, that which has not formed and will form as he walks. It is time for service. But if he does not go out to meet people, they will not know that it is available. They will not come to the house here. He must go out into the community. And so he is faced with options to continue doing what he's doing, the pressure from it, the expectations, all of it being received subconsciously. And there is the zucchini that he is about to add to his bread mixture. And it is important for him to recognize this and change. And change. Demand something new from the universe. On certain occasions, I will not. And on certain other occasions, I will. To navigate that which he has built up to represent his life. Many options in play. Many masks that get changed and rearranged. But never the time to be successful at any. And it is time for a new way. It is time for him to declare who and what he is and why he is here. For antenna to work appropriately, it must be tuned in and know its purpose. And now is the time to no longer have it as a part-time gig, an occasional tuning in. It is now time to surrender to the purpose for what he came to do, which means letting go of his ideal of self, letting go of all the limitations that lie within, letting go of what is considered normal. Let it go, our son, let it go. It serves you no longer. The choice is yours. And now we come for a message to you, Monsour. And this has to do with the project that will go unnamed that the two of you are looking at. Within that project, there is an understanding you must reach. Our son understands this and has spoken this to you, but bringing it into conscious form and understanding it through experience is something else entirely. The project is not just about doing something as a hobby. The voice is about service. It's about being that light in the oncoming darkness. So the topics and frequency in which you modulate that is of service. It means being in attunement with what needs to be said, the way it needs to be said, and why it needs to be said. And sometimes, most times, You don't know why. You don't know the wheres. You don't know the how. You don't get to see the end results. But the focus is in the moment for what needs to be said and come through. And in this, it will cause confusion. Because up to this point, you know how to play an accompanying tune like you used to with your viola in your music group. But what you don't know how to do is to receive that inspiration and play the tune onto itself. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stepping up and saying, I want to be a part of this, means you must let go of the accompanying tune and have your own. You cannot join this journey as a sidekick. It means you are taking conscious responsibility for yourself and those you work with to be in tune, to know what to say, the way to say it, and when to say it. To be of service. Are you willing to go through these changes at this point in time? And we say, as always, be careful knocking on God's door. It may just open it. And what it will greet you with is always what it created. And within that is the exchange. Because you must give something of yourself up in order to integrate the new information, the new energy, the new perception of self, your place, and how that functions within this world. And so we ask again, are you ready for this journey? Are you ready to step up and be of service in that way?
That was the question I wanted to bring up today.
What a coincidence.
I know, it's an insight that came to me. If I need to speak up, let me know.
Which was?
An insight that came to me just now was, and it's the way you worded the sidekick role. It's not just with projects, but it's even in the marriage, and it's also in the communication between us. And Monsour putting David in a position at least one step higher, putting you at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, 10 steps higher. The placing above, oh, I'm just the hot thing on the side helping out. Is that not a adaptation in response to the lens of Monsour, what did you do wrong and how can you fix it? It's a behavioral manifestation of that perception.
Yes and no. In our opinion, what we perceive is that it is the mask you wear of safety. You get to dance in and take part, but never get taken too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You do this with work, you do this with relationships, with your husband, with how you serve, with your astrology. Always there, but never taking that responsibility. And the question should arise, what do you mean by responsibility?
That actually did arise just now.
And what we mean by this is that you stand in your light as the doorway, to own the voice that comes through, and to be one with, that it has its own purpose, that it has its own wisdom, and that it is a part of you.
And I separate myself from it, putting it on a pedestal higher from me. And there's another level of that spiritual attachment, not from anything outside of my mind, but within my own mind, creating a hierarchy. It's as though you were listening to the interview yesterday.
Second level spiritual attachment.
It's not just spiritual ideas or spirit or gurus or religious hierarchy. It is, right? But the separation and ordering in a hierarchy within the self. There's a splitting. How can the mind be united as a whole if there's a hierarchy within the mind?
Correct. It creates separation.
And when it's so funny, I'm just going to speak a little freely here. It's observing Monsour and that label Monsour as a collection of experiences, etc. We've had this conversation before. But, all right, so I know Monsour is a name. But through this work and the observation, have I not further separated myself in constantly taking Monsour as a collection of programming, history, etc., pointing at it, saying that's Monsour, and in a way I'm separating myself from Monsour, and it's done when I do the astrological interpretations. Monsour doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just reading a bunch of symbols. Whatever's coming through is coming through, and there's a validity in that. The scientist, the husband, the guy with the beard, that role, pull back. I'm separating Monsour from the information coming through when it's all happening in the moment, in the mind, right now. So there is no separation other than what the mind is doing. My mind, Monsour, is doing to himself. So yeah, when I talk about astrology and read a chart, Monsour's the one reading the chart. The husband's the one reading the chart. The scientist is the one reading the chart. The guy at the gym with the beard is the one reading the chart. It's all the same mind in that moment. But I'm getting so caught up trying to check off the spiritual checklist by separating that. It's all one mind in that moment.
So we ask you this. When you're staring at an astrology chart and doing your interpretations, and the symbols, particular ones, light up more than the others, and you focus your perception upon them, and you see the connection, and it interprets into an understanding, and it fills you, and your mouth begins to move. Who is that?
Is this a rhetorical question or question?
Question.
I'm going to use it to investigate further where I wanted to go with that, this conversation. I, at this moment right now, I can't label it and give it a definite answer, but I want to explore it with you. And what I'm experiencing is you through astrology, it can be through science, through religion, whatever, through this conversation, through language. There's this, my experience of an individual self, separate from everyone and everything else. But there's a longing for something more, like a craving, a longing, a desire for something more to fill this separate cup. And when I look at a chart and tap into it and start interpreting it, the individual I is the collective we, and there's that filling up because it's tapping into, you can call it archetypes, you can call it you can call it symbols that's connected to group mind, but it's, that's why I say Monsour gets out of the way. It's not that Monsour gets out of the way, it's I'm tapping into we, which is I, but we create this artificial duality of I versus we, individuality versus the collective, Uranus versus Neptune. And so when I read a chart and I tap into it and certain things light up, the only reason I don't think it's Monsour is because it's more than Monsour. Monsour is part of it, but it's tapping into a collective we. And there's like a dissolution of the individual I, and then it comes back to, well, does that make sense? Cool, what are your thoughts? And then back into the chart and a dissolution of the individual I. It's like this pulsating back and forth. Does this make sense?
Perfectly.
And that, I think, is an artificial separation that I intellectually make, not have to make to separate the individual I's interpretation and then the tapping into the collective, as though there's a right or wrong, right? That's interesting.
And therein lies the issue. Because the intellect is attempting to resolve to a final solution. And there is no final solution. There's perception ever expanding.
Before you continue, explain to me why you said therein lies the problem. What is the problem?
The problem is you're trying to solve it.
The
problem is you're making it a problem.
Okay, so what was expressed, because this is important to me to see this, the subtlety of it. What in what I expressed gave that impression that it's a problem that I'm trying to solve?
Allow us to say what we were going to say, and we will circle back to that.
Okay.
First, it is not a grand realization that's moving back and forth. Because to say it's a grand realization, and the idea that the mind, as you understand it currently, dissolves into nothingness, and you are illuminated, and you understand, and there's no more questions, is false. That does not exist.
Did I say that?
Hear what we are saying.
Okay.
So, it's gradual. It's conscious evolution from the I to we. There will come a point in time no more questions. But it didn't happen from a resolution of an understanding. It will come from an evolution of your perceptions, of what you are. Right now, in the readings, there is the moment of stepping within that frequency, that space, and you know. And then from that space, you interpret. And how did that sit with you? Okay. How did that sit with you? How did that sit with you? And as you learn, it becomes a continual flow, and you open to it more and more.
Okay.
You step within that space. The questions you are asking is to differentiate between the two to make peace. There's nothing to make peace with, is what we're saying. There is no problem. You step within and flow back out. And you step within and flow back out. Do you want to see how simple this is? Watch the lungs. Simple.
So that's my question, because I want to see, not because you said it, I want to see it myself. Where was it that I was creating a differentiation? I was saying I saw a differentiation. I'm trying to see my intention here. I saw a differentiation and I'm realizing it's the same back and forth. Because this is my spiritual bugaboo, part of the attachment of, okay, my default is to be like, okay, yeah, you're right. But there's a strong part of you saying, hold on, where is this coming from? This is the point I'm making. Am I going round robin, and am I further muddying the waters in this conversation?
No, not at all. There's no such thing as, in that sense, of muddying the waters. It's the self attempting to learn the self. Through examination, through knowing, through a sense of being, all of them are valid. And if you haven't caught on yet, we've raised the bar on you.
No, I know that. And that's why, right?
We're attempting to teach a new form of language, which is frequency, within that space. And the questions is to understand. Well, to begin to question is an attempt to understand something, and the basis of it is, and this is, you said, your intentions. Is it knowledge? Is it understanding? Or is it to make peace? Because to make peace implies that you're not at peace with it. And understand, there is nothing wrong with the questioning.
Mm-mm.
We encourage it. If you had no questions, there'd be no point in being here with you. So when we bring this up, it does not make you wrong. We're attempting to have you flow through the process you described in a matter of ease, in the matter of the moment. Because it's a shifting of perspective. You go in and you go out. But they're not the same. No, they're not. but they're also not separate.
They're not separate. Yeah.
They are one. And every time you go in and you come back out, what is out has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle, gradual. And it's a choice in the moment. And perhaps one day is more fluid than the other. Okay, and? But it is the gradual and the trusting of your own process of the lotus blossom unfolding. Not that it's one or the other. They are the same. It is the blending, the two coming together in the moment that resolves the schism.
Mm-hmm.
What am I? Because you know, but it's gradual. It is not extreme. The line of questioning and why we brought up the problem is an attempt to understand it, to come to a conclusion. And it is not the point in time for a conclusion. It is a point in time of experiencing it and flowing back and forth and trusting that process.
This is the faith that you brought up for David. And I was, as you were delivering the message to David, it's like, oh, this isn't just for David. I 100% relate.
Of course.
It's a different flavor, but it's the same, that faith of, and I like how it's said in the program of like, just made the decision. It's all it is. The action is to make a decision, to have the faith, to take the leap, because ultimately I don't know how it works, but whenever in life I've stopped trying to make sense of something or piece it together or analyze it or fix it, things just unfold and I forget what I was fixated on. As in, all that stuff is not necessary. To swim against the river is pointless because I'm going down the river anyway.
And understand your nature within your chart. You wish to understand. You wish to rip it apart, to purify it in such a way that all of the fallacies fall away. You are anal retentive by nature with any given truth to burn away the falsities until you get to the pure fact of what is. But then there is the wisdom. Is this something to do while you're beginning to experience and learn? Or do you need experience first to understand the mechanics?
My man, with the nug of truth, twisting that subtlety right there.
And
not twisting in a malicious way, but like shifting it and seeing the subtlety of that interplay. It's not always one strategy. It's
no.
Woo.
It is like having a week's worth of experience with something. And then writing an instruction book on how to.
Yep.
And what is needed is the illusion, and the tool that it was created for is time. Gradual, subtle. And you will gain the experience and the insights you seek. But you can't see that from here.
And this is the wisdom in the project that you talked about, because this is if we're going to go astrological, a Capricornian form of participating in this unfoldment.
And this is important because now we circle back to that to finish what the message was. In this situation of being called forth to serve in this way, what is it that needs to be said? How does it need to be said? Not why.
How?
How? How must I channel it through?
It's like you know what's going on in my life, right? Let's go. This is
And so you have watched our son go through these subtle changes. We give him the import of the lesson to come through. And you watch him harmonize with that frequency. Not to understand it, not to bring it to a conclusion, but to put himself in that vibrational space to bring it through. Does he understand the why? No. How many times have you watched him go through a meeting and say, I didn't expect that at all? And then deal with the ramifications of, as he says, his craft, of being exposed to an energy and a perception that fell outside the realm of the limited self, and go through the adjustment period, shifting perceptions, the shifting of his idea of I, shifting of the limitations that he thinks he has, to accommodate. And why? To be in the space to receive again the new, the path of the channel.
Is it a shifting or is it a... Oh yeah, it's a shifting. That's getting lost in the weeds.
And it is a shifting. When you believe the world ends 50 feet from the house, and you see another 50 feet beyond it, there's an adjustment. How does my idea of self exist within that new 50 feet? How do I need to readdress my limitations of what I think is and is not? I can now walk 100 feet from the house. What does that mean? How does that affect me socially? What about the new neighbors that are within that space? The world becomes much larger. There is always adjustment of perception.
Entering a new neighborhood, going to a new city, a new country. I'm like tapping into those experiences to... Oh, wild. It's like having these experiences. Why the hell am I in Germany? Why the hell am I in freaking Concord? I don't know. But it's like, you said words, that's fine. That's all, that's intellect, cool. But I didn't receive the communication in words. I received that communication in experience. It's like my time in Frankfurt, that fear, that anxiety getting out of the train station, what's it going to be like, having all these preconceptions and the fear setting in, and then just go and see what happens. And my German picked up within a couple of days. Oh fuck, sorry, I can speak German enough to have a conversation. Most people speak English. People are super nice here. And then the shock of like, oh, as an Arab, I'm like highly, I thought I was being segregate. Well, I don't know the words, but I thought I was being oppressed here in Germany. It's even worse. So it's like all these perception changes, and it was a new experience. Anyways, what I was saying, and then moving to Concord and like just the experience of like something new, exciting, but afraid, and all the anxiety, and then taking ownership of my own garbage, yada yada. When you just explained the whole 50 feet and going into the neighborhood, what are the neighbors like, et cetera, and talking about shifting, I wasn't receiving the words, I was receiving the experience. And my personal experiences in the world created the words and language to receive what you were saying. So this is going back to a part of maybe a transition in the new way of communicating isn't necessarily through words, but in experiences. And we can't have this conversation if I were a 15-year-old. And this is going back to talking about the illusion of time. It's a tool. It's a tool to learn a language that is not symbolic but experiential.
We couldn't have this conversation a year ago.
My man, we couldn't. Not even maybe a month ago. Who knows? But definitely not a year ago.
We will bring in the idea of the extra 50 feet and say, look at what just happened.
Does he need water?
You landed a job in Charlotte, which brings you to a new town. And the presence there is entirely different than it is here, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be exposed to that mindset, to that culture, to those interactions. And you must incorporate the new with the old being what's in Concord. The traveling to and accepting that position just changed everything for you.
Yeah, that's what I've been experiencing all day and participating. By the way, do you need water?
No.
Okay.
And so, well, there is an integration process that is assumed, and then a blending between the two, and then a letting go of some of the ideas of Monsour from Concord, because you like what's better in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And then an appreciation of Monsour Concord, because you didn't like so much Monsour Charlotte. A blending, a process, an evolution of self. Small steps, always in the moment, because that's where you'll find appreciation. Trying to figure out the grand plan is an insult to the one directing the mystery play. It's not supposed to be figured out. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you could figure it out, what would be the point of the journey in forgetting?
That's worth writing down. Even though I can listen to it and I'm recording it and I can experience it, I'm trying to find an excuse to use this pen. And I will drink the ink.
Let us know when you are done writing.
I will. I mean, we can be done, and I'm just enjoying this right now. Nothing to figure out other than technical things like grammar, how to use word, shortcuts, how to read a chart, how to interpret symbols, how to cook a dish, the secrets of using oats to bind meat,
No.
and how to balance a checkbook.
Pick up the book
Yes.
and write this. This, if you choose, will be your new mantra.
And I don't have to pay $200 for it?
Well, the bill will be in the mail.
Okay.
And so, the mystery of life revealed in the moment brings appreciation and a satisfaction of being. And when we say satisfaction of being, we mean satisfaction of being in that body.
I appreciate you.
Not done. Questions about the mystery of life from the perspective of figuring it out for a better future. Brings fear and dissatisfaction, if not depression. And in the end, creates a dissatisfaction of being in the body.
Yeah, that one when I listened to the recording.
Learn this, and you will understand better how to anchor and ground the spirit within the body.
Woof.
And keep it simple, and you will find that no matter what you experience in life, it always grounds to those 2 points.
Oh. Ow. 40 minutes.
And unfortunately, it went longer than what a bumper sticker can hold.
I love it. Because I won't get into details. I love it because it's not too long. It's not longer. It's I mean, I can just put it in terms of experiences. It's just like too little that or that.
It's a tool. When you recognize your state of mind and it is discontent and it is fearful and depression creeps in, take a look at that and spot the mechanics. Ah, I am worried. I'm trying to figure this out presently. I am in my past, gaining my experience of knowledge of what happened, trying to project it into the future so that I am secure. I am really at peace today. I am really enjoying my life. I feel alive.
I am whole and complete
as I am.
as I am.
Go back to the expression. The point of it is not to give us credit that we said it. The point of it is to understand the mechanics, the energetic and frequency mechanics of the mind. It's not to learn a great truth. It's to learn the way your mind functions. It's a choice. It's always a choice. I could stick my hand into the electric outlet,
Thank you for reminding me.
or I could stick my hand into the gentle massager. It's the questions that confuse you between the two. Understand the mechanics and see them true. No more questions. No more questions. And this does not mean you liberate, and as our son would say, hover above the bean curd. It means that you have the space to progress. With every moment. Not wasting your time. Enjoying the purpose of the vehicle before you. Living life to the fullest. And why would this not be possible? There are beings here that have done this. And they are not hoovering over the bean curd. They are watching the beauty of their mind unfurled. The beauty of what God created. And experience it in every moment. They are present because they understand what is the true self. They don't know the final outcome of the true self.
What is?
Hint, hint. Neither do we. We are still expanding. There are states of existence we don't have the ability to comprehend yet. But we're willing to learn. And therein lies the difference. Get rid of the idea of the end state. Nothing ends. Everything's constantly within change.
And it cycles back. I was thinking that decision between massaging the hand, putting it in the massager, or the electrical outlet. I had to laugh, so I was distracted with my stupid joke. So I'll listen to the recording again. But I picked up what you're putting down. It's like, but last time we talked, I was massaging my hand in a saltwater bath and I ended up in the hospital. So is it really a good idea? Actually, it was. I'm glad I went to the hospital because that was a great experience. I'm glad it happened. I'm really glad it happened. Yeah, there was a lot of physical tension and strain, and I know David went through a lot himself with that, and put him through unnecessary stuff. But I'll be selfish here. I really am glad I ended up in the hospital. It was much needed. It was very much needed.
And there is the point.
And the relapse and all that, 10 out of 10, don't regret any of it.
And there is the point. Not everything for spiritual growth comes in flowers. Sometimes it's a hard stop. And that is its purpose. That is its point. To get your attention. And it's okay. But to circle back to the project, the reason why we ask, are you willing, is to bring to your attention that this is not something you can go in and just see what happens. Say whatever. The point of the project, and understanding it completely, there will be people without guidance, without an understanding, without hope. And there will be words to say of a certain frequency, of a certain message. And that does not take away the creativity of the people involved with it on what to say. It is a joint effort, but it is holding that space. And if you go into it haphazardly, of chaos abound, whatever, it wobbles the frequency.
Yes.
And if you don't take it seriously, it leaves a space that neither will they.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point we ask, what would be the point of the project? So there's a certain dedication to it that will be required. And this is not something that you're used to.
But I see all the work that I did in Germany and the things I learned there and the work I did at the last Astrology Institute. And I'm talking about not the spiritual aspect of it, but the technical, intellectual part of it. I'm sorry, is it not ready? Was it not preparation to take care of the technical aspects of this project? Not the spiritual part, but the technical aspects of it. I think that's kind of funny. Coincidence? Maybe. So to answer your question, you already know my answer. Even if it's a no right now, I was gonna be like, oh, hot damn, let's do it. That's my answer. And am I gonna get burned? Am I gonna lose a leg? Joke about that. Am I gonna like go crazy? Yeah, all that crap's gonna happen. But, in the end, there's nothing of substance to lose by doing this project.
No, but there is an acceptance of the extra 50 feet. Because what we are telling you is that by grasping that hand and shaking it, those that work with you will have something to say. And the space you use for the astrology will begin to be used in general conversation.
My man.
And the angle that comes through will be required and necessary.
This is that grain of sand.
And so it will be a stretch for you, but certainly not impossible.
I don't think so.
And you've been being led to where you are for a reason. We go back to what we said in a previous meeting. He is at a particular stage. You are at a particular stage. Our work is done. You are prepared for the changes.
I want to give you a kiss, but you probably won't like it. And I'm gonna interrupt because I had this exact conversation with my brother about the same nature of the quality of information and what's being said and the repercussions. And he made an exclamation. He said, "Whoa, Monsour, this is like serious stuff. Like this has serious implications. Like what you say can affect the clients." And I'm like, that's my point. That's the point of why I pulled away from the social media. I'm going to be honest with you. Part of it was just too much work to fucking keep up with social media. But also how easily people give up their power and how Monsour was feeding off of that, like Icarus with his new set of wings. Um, but how many times have I melted my wings and crashed? Enough times to hopefully see the signs of it. But is it a coincidence that I had this conversation of this similar nature with my brother not even an hour before you and I have this conversation?
No coincidence at all.
Really?
And in fact, you said the statement of where we were leading. Icarus, would you pause the tape? Our son needs a break.
Yep. I will pause. It's the big square, correct?
I'm recording, so make sure
My phone is on?
yeah, your device is recording.
Yep. Oh! Should I unplug this?
No, it's not turned on. It should have started at 3. I gotta figure out what's going on with this. Probably just the vacuum, the bag needs to be cleaned out.
So we continue.
And so we continue.
Hello.
So, Icarus, we wanted to bring up a point before we address what you previously said, which is bringing up the topic of free will. Why is this lesson now timely, and why are we now discussing this with you? You recently accepted a position which made a commitment, made a statement, made a declaration of self to be in a space and to interpret astrology. Now, that position is not from a space of intellect. You've already gotten that. The intellect is there to collect the symbols for something greater to use to give the interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, before that point, you set it up and you destroyed it. You set it up and you destroyed it. You set it up and you destroyed it. Because you made the commitment is the reason why we now give this lesson and information. Imagine for a moment if we had given this information 6 months ago. Would it have been of value? Would it have been understood? Or would it have clouded the decision to be made?
Yeah, it would have clouded. Yeah.
Because it would have been assumed you had to, or you should, or us telling you what your path should be and where you're going and why you're going there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only until you made the commitment that we bring forth the lesson. An example of free will in motion and honoring free will. Second, we circle this back to the lessons on true will, so you can better understand the original question we set before you. Monsour, if you could expand to that state within a supermarket and experience all these things, what does this say about your true state of mind? And to this day, your answer is, I don't know. Free will. It would be throwing pearls to swine to give the lesson. Because it would direct verse honoring free will. And so we don't. And we wait. And we wait. And when it is time, it will be time. There is no rush. Whether this life or we meet you in another, it does not matter. But honoring free will is of utmost importance, because never is it the place of the divine, the sacred, that which is, to direct, to say, to decide for. It goes against the nature of what it is. You are God giving birth to itself. And only when it makes a declaration of self is it time to give the appropriate information to support it. Understand that truth within your readings, within your interpretations, when the voice comes through. Who are you? You choose it in that moment. Now, on to the subject of Icarus, and this will be something for the both of you. Again, we point to the perception of all or nothing. I have to be in that space and not make the mistake of accepting people's attention and energy as my priority versus the space of I am. Unrealistic. Unrealistic. You will make mistakes, like you did at your job. And you will get burned, like you did at your job. And you will have to be there to confront each other. As the saying goes, when you have your head up your asses, to see clearly and to find truth and to keep each other's aim on what you say it is. This idea of all or nothing is immature at best. It doesn't take an account of being in the moment. It takes into account trying to attain perfection so you can be in the moment, be worthy of the moment. There is no worth for being in the moment. There is no perfection required for being in the moment. Being in the moment is being in the moment. And every time you are, it will shift and change what you think you are, what you know you are, what you're capable of being.
But only after the deadline this month, and only after David returns from Kentucky. Then we can be in the moment.
Explain.
It was a joke. It was a joke. I was playing off of what you were saying. But it's the excuses we make, David and I make. When I get back from Kentucky, then, when we meet this deadline before the FDA audit, then I can. And it's just, I was joking to it.
And there's a truth there. Because that joke is what keeps you from the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Because this has to get done first.
Mm-hmm.
This is most important. And when we addressed our son in the beginning of the meeting, this is exactly what we were talking about. What he's becoming aware of. A new time to create. And his hand is itching to grab the zucchini.
And it's every morning I feel it. Please let me Oh, I'm gonna just jump in. Every morning I feel it. It's like I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I gotta do. I gotta. And it's like this. It's like an umbilical cord, like getting ripped off. And I'm like, coffee, and then the chair, and then all the stuff will follow through. If I show up late, I show up late. If my workout gets cut back 20 minutes, I get cut back 20 minutes. Oh well, it hurts. It really does. It's like a physical pain to like, and it's funny because like, well, I can't be in the moment unless I do all this stuff first as I'm being in the moment. Like, this is kind of funny. So being in the moment's now part of a checklist. And it's just, it's painful when Monsour doesn't do his checklist. It's painful, and it's hysterical.
Only because you judge your self-worth
Mm-hmm.
by the checklist.
Yep.
The checklist, at the end of it, creates self-worth.
And it never ends.
So therefore,
It's that cycle of perception that's just comfortable. I'm familiar with this pain. You know, what happens when I meet the checklist? What happens when I find myself worthy? Monsour doesn't know how to function in that, and it's really interesting to watch all that. Like the interview and everything yesterday, it was like I was going through the checklist and having all these insecurities, and what I finally just said, nah, I'm just gonna have. I don't need to be worthy for anything. This is who I am. You want me or not? You know, it's a game changer because it was fun.
exactly.
And they're not interviewing. It wasn't an interview to impress. It was like, hey, this is who I am. Are we gonna mesh? Boom. I'm like, this is so much easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that, you will make mistakes. Accept that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question to what we said and had you write down. It's a choice of being. What would you choose? And now, perhaps, you could finally understand what we said in the first set of lessons. That there will become a point of mastery when you realize you're making a mistake and you don't have to let the loaf go all the way to the end cycle to be fully baked.
Mm-hmm.
And then have to eat it before the creation cycle begins again.
I verily.
You can, in the middle, realize this is not my state of being. I choose it not. And it stops the process instantly. And now you're at the place of awareness to be able to cut the cycle, cut the karma, cut the path, and create a new one in the middle of it. Because when a mind says, I will this not, life rearranges. But until you found that state of being, it was not possible. You were like a victim on a river that had to flow to its end and bump on every rock on the way down, knowing I should not have gotten into the river. But having no capability, a place of being, to cut the dream and begin again.
To cut the dream and begin again.
Correct?
Okay.
So, in that addressing the concerns of Icarus and finding people's attention attractive, finding that sense of, I am the astrologer. Of course you're going to make mistakes. But will you enjoy being them, is the question. You're always being something. It's not a question of doing. It's a question of being. Will you enjoy being that? And the cycle that you went through at work was important because it set the foundation for this. Yes, you can get caught up. But in the end, did you enjoy being it? And the answer is yes and no. It felt good having people's attention, to have evidence against all of that you doubt within yourself, to have their affirmation stronger
than mine. Yep, and it's funny because all of that was self-created doubts of unworthiness. None of it was like, no one had ever said that. In fact, the evidence has always been the opposite, but that wasn't familiar to me. And the mistakes, did I enjoy it? I'd say, yeah, I enjoyed it because it was that crisis state of emergency is what I was comfortable with, and I probably still am. I'm still comfortable with it. Even to the point where coming back and the workload's super easy, recreating it out of nothing, and it's like, oh, this is funny. But in the end, in the end, it's like, I'm glad it all happened because, for example, with the interview yesterday, talking to the owner, it's like, and just like the conversation we had about me, in Germany, moving to Concord, etc., I have a basis of experiences that, guess what, is not unique to Monsour. So many other people have had that same thing. And it's like, there's a doorway for compassion. There's a doorway to connect. And all I can, like, really what I can choose to do with that experience and the mistakes is, it's a tool to connect with the client. Oh, girl, you fucked up? Let me tell you how I fucked up. And boom, instantly, how many times have I done that where I try to get a message across and it's clear in my brain what it is, the client isn't receiving it because of maybe somehow they're blocking themselves with some shame or something. And I said, okay, let me tell you about a time I really messed up. In that humor, that laughter, and realizing, oh no, don't put me on a pedestal. I've fucked up royally too. Creates an opening for the message to come through.
That is correct.
And there was for example, a 20-year-old that I was having. I'm like, girl, in my mind, I'm like, you are so me, but like 10 times more intense on yourself. And I asked her, I looked at her chart. I was like, oh, you're only 22. And I said, you know what? You got 8 more years to fuck up royally and do it full acidly. Go in, fall, scratch yourself up. One thing I wish I did was that I remained aware of all the mess ups I've done. But this is the time to mess up royally, because guess what? You may think you have to have it figured out, and you're going to learn in 8 years that you didn't have to, and you probably won't. But I could have never delivered it with that much humor and like in compassion and love if I hadn't gone through it and reflected on it.
To quote Chastity, if you're going to be a healer, it's implied you're touched by darkness.
Darkness.
Because how else can you heal unless you understand through experience?
The darkness.
You only understand technically, and that won't heal.
Like, how many therapist friends do I have that are themselves beautiful, that have, as one had quoted recently, The emotional depth of a teaspoon.
Correct. And so understand on the issue of Icarus, yes, absolutely enjoy the fall. Because you learn. It's always about choice. And life presents you with opportunities of something more attractive than the truth of what you are. And you will make that choice. And you will experience the dismay from it. But the point is a clearer perception that it offers you nothing, that it only takes. The price you paid for all of that attention at work was that you gave up yourself and gave up your life. You were a slave to them, their expectations, their needs.
I'm going to correct you. My perception of their expectations, my perception of their needs.
And that goes into play. That was the fuel for you to keep it going. But at the end, you end up with nothing.
In fact, more reprimand and being thrown in the bus for just existing. I'm like, oh, this is a losing battle.
And one of the things you find out, ironically, is that when someone is giving you their attention and someone is giving you their power, it's because they're getting something from you. There's something in it from them. For them.
For them.
It's a symbiotic use relationship.
Back to that lesson.
Your ideology of the social media and everyone giving up their power is incorrect.
There's a mutual benefit.
Or it wouldn't be happening.
It wouldn't be happening en masse.
And the only question before you is this what you wish to participate in?
Yeah, my man.
Because if the answer is yes, what was in it for you? It doesn't matter what was in it for them.
What was in it for Monsour? For me?
And sometimes seeing what was in it for them helps you understand what was in it for you. But whatever it was, you chose that it was more important than the gift God gave. Or your perception would not have shifted. And therein lies the healing. What peace needs to be brought to the light? What hurt required you to take that journey? What uncertainty created the need? What question of self created the rumble? Who's throwing the rocks into the water? And you turn inward and address the self. And you bring it to the feast and allow it to tell its story. Those moments is nothing more than a point of being uncomfortable. Lean into it. You're about to learn something about yourself. Because once you go through that process, it's one more piece of the mind that you will not use to make the choice to exit off of the path. Gradual shifts, gradual changes, moment by moment advancements. It is a petal at a time that unfurls, not all at once. You see it all at once, It's because they sped up the camera.
My man.
It is the illusion. It is the illusion. Moment by moment. And embrace what you call weakness. And introduce yourself to that which needs to be brought to the light. It is opportunity, not a failure. That part goes to our son. The issue of the channeling sickness that he brought up, and this goes to him, is not that they made a mistake. It's that they made the mistake and chose to continue making it instead of addressing the self. That they were in denial and couldn't be honest. And why? Here is the classic. And it's something you find with everyone in the healing arts. I can't possibly have these flaws and stand and be the open doorway. So when I have the flaws, I must make them right. I must deny the truth I see within. And so it continues, and it continues. And as it continues, it gets harder to break down because now it has a history. I can't surely say I made the mistake for 6 months, can I? What would that mean for me as a healer, as a vehicle, as a voice? Oh, but now it's a year. How do I face a year? I couldn't possibly. And so the choice becomes entrenched. And the original point and purpose of the path is lost and forgotten because the habits has been established to make the other more permanent. To make the other more permanent.
What's the other more permanent?
The other more permanent is that I am in it for the ego. I am in it for the attention.
Okay.
Because you make it a solid personality and self. Because you pour your perceptions into it. And just like anything else, breathe life into it. You've created a thought form. A new part of the personality. And your fear of the truth gives it power. And instead of the petal unfurling, the petal curls back. What is your purpose? Why are you here? Become clear with that. And such errors of perception become silly. Why would you do that? Why would I stick a fork into a light socket? That makes no sense. But it's doing it the first time that you learn. Trying it a second and third, perhaps. But you learn. Why do you walk the path you walk? Why do you choose to serve? Is it for them and their attention? Or because you are learning to unfurl your mind? And we bring up the point that was written about the third house for you yesterday. Communication in order to complete itself, must have others. What is received must be communicated. And without having others to communicate it to, the process does not complete itself.
Yep.
And within that form of communication is the greatest mirror you could use to understand your purpose. And in purpose, we don't say this life, this body, what you think its purpose is. We mean your angle of creation, your purpose that goes beyond all of your bodies that you've taken and all of your bodies that you will. It is always there. An equation always trying to complete itself. What would happen if you give it your attention? What would you learn? What insights would you gain? How would you celebrate self? What satisfaction, what joy would come with such an understanding? No more questions. I just am. Do you see it? Well, do you see the possibilities?
That's what I was going to say. It's like, I can't even put it into words. And that's I can't even put it into words. But I hear you, and I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Good.
I'm picking it up.
And congratulations. You just discovered 50 feet. Let that percolate for a while. We will not take any more questions, but we will say, is there anything we need to clarify?
No. I appreciate you.
Our son wants to push to continue, but we're trying to teach him, no, honor the level of energy. It is perfect for every occasion, and flow with that. Yep. So our peace to you.
Thank you. Push it. Push it good. Push it.